You're listening to the Core Factors audio library, spoken versions of Core Factors articles and research designed to support accessibility and for listening while commuting, working, or reflecting. This piece is titled, Trust as a Leadership Metric, Measuring What Matters Most. The following narration reflects the original content and intent of the written article.
Trust as a leadership metric, measuring what matters most. Trust has always been the currency of leadership. It determines how quickly teams align, how openly people communicate, and how resilient organizations remain under pressure. When trust is high, collaboration flows naturally. When it is low, even the best strategies falter. Despite its impact, trust remains one of the least measured elements of leadership performance. Most organizations track engagement, retention, and productivity, but not the underlying variable that drives them. Gallup's State of the Global Workplace 2025 shows that employees who firmly trust their leaders are more than twice as likely to feel engaged at work. McKinsey's data echoes this finding, identifying trust in leadership as a leading predictor of well-being and adaptability. Trust is the foundation of good management. The next frontier of leadership analytics will focus not only on what leaders achieve, but on how consistently they build trust across their teams. Why trust is the leadership multiplier. Trust magnifies the impact of every other leadership behavior. Empathy, communication, and feedback all depend on it. Without trust, even well-intentioned coaching or recognition feels performative. With it, accountability and challenge become growth opportunities. Deloitte's Global Human Capital Trends 2025 found that organizations with high trust cultures are twice as likely to outperform peers in innovation and engagement. Trust improves collaboration by reducing fear and friction. It allows people to focus on problem-solving rather than self-protection. At the team level, trust enables constructive disagreement and faster decision-making. Gallup's findings reinforce that psychological safety drives creativity and retention. The American Psychological Association's Work in America 2025 reports that workers who feel they can rely on their leaders experience significantly lower stress and greater job satisfaction. The evidence is clear. Trust is not abstract. It is an operational asset that determines how effectively people think, learn, and work together. Measuring trust through emotional intelligence. Although trust is emotional, it can be measured. Emotional intelligence provides a framework for understanding and quantifying the behaviors that create or erode trust over time. Core Factors EQ Accelerator model defines 4 measurable dimensions of emotional intelligence that directly influence trust. The first dimension is self-awareness. This involves understanding how actions and emotions affect others. Leaders who recognize their own behavioral impact are more consistent and credible. The second dimension is other awareness. This involves accurately perceiving others' perspectives and needs. Empathy builds fairness and inclusion, the emotional roots of trust. The third dimension is self-regulation. This involves managing stress and reactivity. When leaders stay composed under pressure, teams gain confidence in their stability. The fourth dimension is other engagement. This involves acting transparently and following through. Trust grows when words and actions align. Each quadrant represents a behavior that can be observed, measured, and strengthened. Together, they form a blueprint for trustworthy leadership. DDI's HR Insights Report 2025 found that leaders with strong self-awareness and empathy are rated 1.5 times more trustworthy by their teams. These findings highlight the connection between emotional competence and perceived credibility. When organizations measure and develop these behaviors, they gain data-driven insight into one of their most valuable assets, the collective trust that drives performance. The cost of distrust. Trust is built gradually but lost quickly, and the cost of losing it is measurable. APA's Work in America 2025 found that inconsistent communication and job insecurity are among the top causes of workplace stress. Distrust amplifies both. When employees feel uncertain about leadership decisions, they disengage emotionally long before they resign physically. Workplace Options Psychological Safety and Wellbeing Study 2025 documented how declining trust correlates with higher absenteeism, interpersonal conflict, and turnover. In low-trust environments, innovation slows as people default to caution. Mistakes are hidden rather than discussed. Collaboration becomes compliance. the financial impact is real. Gallup's analysis shows that teams with low trust and low engagement cost organizations 18% in lost productivity annually. Yet the erosion of trust rarely starts with major breaches. It begins with small misalignments between what leaders say and what they do. Over time, those moments compound into disengagement. Building trust into the leadership system. While emotional intelligence provides the foundation for trustworthy behavior, systems and culture determine whether it endures. Trust becomes sustainable when it is embedded in the routines and expectations of leadership, not treated as a personal trait. 4 practices help build systemic trust. First, consistency. Align words and actions and communicate decisions clearly and follow through. Second, clarity. Set expectations and explain rationale to reduce ambiguity. Third, empathy. Listen before acting and demonstrate genuine consideration for others' perspectives. Fourth, accountability. Own mistakes publicly and model the integrity you expect. Deloitte's and McKinsey's 2025 research both highlight that organizations cultivating trust-centered leadership systems outperform peers during change and uncertainty. Teams led by consistent, transparent leaders adapt faster and report higher psychological safety. Core Factors EQ Accelerator supports this systemic approach by measuring the emotional patterns that predict trustworthy behavior. Over time, this data helps organizations identify where trust is strongest and where it needs to be rebuilt. Making trust measurable. For OD, HR, and leadership development professionals, trust can no longer remain an assumed cultural value. It must become a leadership metric that can be defined, tracked, and improved like any other performance factor. Steps for practitioners to operationalize trust include the following. First, diagnose emotional drivers. Use EQ Accelerator data to identify which emotional competencies most influence perceived trust in your organization. Second, make trust visible. Include it as a key dimension in 360 reviews, engagement surveys, and leadership scorecards. Third, facilitate trust dialogues. Guide teams in defining what trustworthy behavior looks like day to day and surface gaps between perception and intent. Fourth, measure change over time. Combine EQ data with pulse surveys and retention metrics to monitor progress. Fifth, coach through reflection. Use the what, so what, now what model to help leaders analyze how their actions build or diminish trust. By treating trust as a measurable construct, organizations turn it from intuition into intelligence. They gain visibility into the emotional mechanisms that sustain performance. Trust as the ultimate KPI. Every organization measures productivity, profitability, and engagement. Few measure the condition that makes all of those possible, trust. In a world defined by hybrid work, digital transformation, and constant change, trust has become the ultimate KPI, the indicator that predicts whether people will stay, adapt, and succeed together. Emotional intelligence provides the method for building it intentionally rather than accidentally. Leaders who cultivate self-awareness, regulate emotion under pressure, and act with empathy and consistency create environments where trust compounds over time. When trust is strong, performance follows naturally. Through the EQ Accelerator, Core Factors helps organizations translate the human side of leadership into measurable data. What gets measured can be improved, and in modern work, trust may be the most important measure of all.
This concludes the audio version of this Core Factors article, and you can explore the full written version and additional resources at corefactors.com.